Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring something that's been on my mind a lot lately. How has reality TV both amplified and kind of distorted the image of blackness in America? We've got some great sources that I think are going to help us kind of unpack all of this. One of them being Asante Bradford's book, Reality TV Ratchet Academy, which really dives deep into the history and evolution of Black popular culture.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic because reality TV often claims to show us like quote unquote real life, but it's still very carefully constructed entertainment.
Yeah.
So the big question is, what messages are being sent and how do those messages actually impact our perceptions of Black individuals and communities?
For sure. And I think when I think about Black popular culture, I immediately think about its resilience. It's constantly evolving, adapting, finding new ways to kind of express itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, Even during slavery, when Black people were stripped of almost everything, and they found ways to create music and art expressing their pain and hope. And that spirit of resilience is kind of what fueled the Harlem Renaissance, that explosion of Black creativity in the 1920s and 30s.
Mm.
And it continues to drive Black creativity today.
I've always found that so inspiring. But then you've got reality TV, which sometimes seems to focus on a very specific and often exaggerated slice of Black life. So, what do you think is the most compelling example of a reality show that either challenges or reinforces stereotypes about Blackness?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so many examples. But one that comes to mind is Love and Hip Hop. On the one hand, it showcases successful Black entrepreneurs and artists, but then on the other hand, it often relies on drama and conflict, which can perpetuate the stereotype of Black people being, you know, loud or aggressive or materialistic.
It's that double-edged sort of visibility. You're getting representation, but is it the kind of representation that truly reflects the diversity and complexity of Black experiences?
Right. And that brings us back to the term ratchet, which Bradford explores in his book. It's a word that's been used to describe behavior deemed uncouth or low class, often targeting Black women. But what's really interesting is that some within Black communities have reclaimed the term, turning it into a form of empowerment.
So it's like they're taking ownership of the word and flipping its meaning.
Exactly. They're challenging mainstream notions of respectability and saying, this is who we are and we're not going to apologize for it. But it also brings up the idea of intersectionality, which basically means we can't look at race, class, and gender in isolation. They all influence each other, creating unique experiences for Black individuals.
So when we're talking about ratchet culture, we're really talking about how race, class, and gender intersect to shape perceptions and experiences, especially for Black women.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the nuances of identity and how those nuances play out in popular culture and in real life.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. How do you think this idea of ratchet culture and the way it's portrayed in reality TV impacts Black youth?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. Young people are constantly bombarded with images and messages. And it's only natural for them to internalize some of those messages. If reality TV is presenting a narrow or distorted view of Blackness, it could absolutely impact how Black youth see themselves and their place in the world.
Especially when you consider the influence of social media where those images and messages are amplified even further. I remember being a teenager and watching shows like The Real World, which was groundbreaking for its diverse cast, but also kind of awkward in how it handled race and representation.
Yeah, it was a learning curve for everyone, right? We were just starting to have those conversations about representation on a national scale. But even today, with shows like Real Housewives of Atlanta, which features successful Black women, you still see those harmful stereotypes popping up, like the angry Black woman, or the idea that Black women are always fighting with each other.
It's frustrating because there's so much more to the Black experience than those limited portrayals, and I worry about the impact those portrayals have, especially on young Black girls who are already facing so many societal pressures.
It's crucial to acknowledge that reality TV isn't a monolithic representation of Blackness. It's just one small piece of a much larger and more complex puzzle.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
So how do we, as viewers, engage with reality TV in a way that's both critical and enjoyable? How do we separate the entertainment from the potential harm?
I think it starts with being aware of the messages being sent, even if those messages are subtle or unintentional.
Like being mindful of the storylines, the editing, the music, all the elements that contribute to the overall message.
Exactly. Ask yourself, who benefits from this portrayal? Whose voice is being amplified and whose voice is being silenced? Once you start asking those questions, you can start to see reality TV in a whole new light.
It's like Bradford says in his book, It's about understanding how language and cultural symbols shape our understanding of popular culture and identity. We need to decode those messages and figure out how they're working on us.
Right. It's not about rejecting reality TV altogether. It's about engaging with it critically and thoughtfully. And on the flip side, celebrating the shows and creators who are doing the work to challenge stereotypes and present more nuanced and authentic portrayals of Blackness.
Speaking of those creators, let's dive into some examples of how Black artists and influencers are using their platforms to reshape narratives and empower communities.
That's a perfect segue because we need to highlight the positive side of this conversation. There are so many Black creators who are using their voices to challenge the status quo and inspire change.
I'm ready to be inspired. Tell me more about these creators and how they're making a difference.
One of the most powerful examples, I think, is Beyoncé. She's not just a global superstar. She's a cultural icon who uses her platform to celebrate Black beauty, womanhood, and history.
Oh, absolutely. Her visual album, Lemonade, was a total game changer. It sparked so many conversations about race and fidelity and the power of Black women.
Exactly. And her performances are often infused with powerful imagery and symbolism. That draws on Black culture and history. She's not afraid to make bold statements. And she uses her platform to amplify the voices of other Black artists and creators.
Yeah, it's incredible to see someone with her level of fame and influence use it for good. And it's not just music either. Black creators are making waves in television, film, and social media.
Absolutely. Issa Rae, with her show Insecure, gave us a fresh and relatable perspective on the lives of young Black women, navigating life, love, and careers in Los Angeles. It was praised for its authenticity and its ability to make you laugh one minute and cry the next.
Oh, and let's not forget about Michaela Cole, who just blew everyone away with I May Destroy You. That show was so raw and honest in its exploration of trauma, consent, and identity. It really pushed boundaries and sparked important conversations.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating about both Issa Rae and Michaela Cole is that they're not just actors, they're creators. They're writing, directing, and producing their own stories, which gives them complete control over how those stories are told.
Right, and that's so important. It's about owning the narrative and ensuring that Black stories are told from a Black perspective. It's about pushing back against the white gaze and presenting a more authentic and multifaceted view of Blackness.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of social media. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube have given rise to a whole new generation of Black creators and influencers who are challenging beauty standards, promoting body positivity, and creating content that celebrates Black joy and resilience.
I love that. It's like they're creating their own spaces where they can define themselves on their own terms, free from the constraints of mainstream media.
And they're building huge followings. They're proving that there's a massive audience for content that reflects diverse experiences and perspectives.
This is giving me so much hope. It feels like there's a real shift happening in the way Blackness is portrayed in popular culture. But let's be real. There's still a long way to go right. What are some of the challenges that Black creators still face?
Absolutely. While there's been progress, it's important to acknowledge that systemic racism and bias still exist within the entertainment industry.
So even with all this amazing work being done by Black creators, there are still barriers and limitations?
Yes, unfortunately. Black creators often face more difficulty getting their projects greenlit, securing funding, and reaching a wider audience.
It's like they have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition.
That's often the case. And even when they do achieve success, they're often held to different standards than their white counterparts. Their work is scrutinized more closely, and they're more likely to be pigeonholed into specific genres or roles.
It's so frustrating. It's like the industry is still playing catch-up, trying to figure out how to embrace and support the full range of Black talent and creativity.
There's definitely a learning curve. And it's not just about individual creators. It's about changing the power dynamics within the industry itself. We need more Black executives, producers, and writers in positions of power who can champion diverse stories and create opportunities for other Black creatives.
You're so right. It's about systemic change, not just individual success stories. So where do we go from here? What can we as viewers and consumers do to support Black creators and push for more inclusive and equitable representation in media?
That's the million-dollar question. I think the most important thing is to be conscious consumers.
What do you mean by that?
Pay attention to who's creating the content you consume. Seek out and support Black-owned media companies, Black filmmakers, Black writers, Black influencers. Your choices matter.
You're saying we need to vote with our wallets and our attention.
Absolutely. Every time you stream a show, buy a book, or follow an influencer, you're sending a message about what you value. So make sure you're supporting the creators who are pushing for progress and amplifying diverse voices.
That's a powerful message. It's not just about passively consuming entertainment. It's about actively engaging with media in a way that promotes equity and inclusion.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to speak up. Share your favorite Black creators with your friends and family. Write reviews, leave comments, and use your voice to amplify the work that resonates with you. The more we support and celebrate Black creators, the more the industry will take notice.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I'm feeling inspired and empowered to use my own platform to promote positive change.
That's what it's all about. It's about recognizing the power we have as consumers and as individuals to shape the media landscape and create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with this thought. How can you use your own choices and your own voice to support Black creators and demand better representation in the media you consume?
It's a question we should all be asking ourselves, because ultimately it's up to us to hold the industry accountable and push for a media landscape that truly reflects the diversity and richness of our world.
It's amazing to think about how far we've come in terms of representation, but also how much further we still need to go. So what are some of the things you think the entertainment industry could be doing better to support Black creators and ensure more authentic representation?
Well, I think a big part of it is diversifying the decision makers.
Yeah.
We need more Black executives, producers, and writers in positions of power
Hmm.
who can actually greenlight projects
Yep.
that reflect a wider range of Black experiences.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It's hard to expect authentic representation when the people deciding what gets made don't reflect the diversity of the audience.
Exactly. It's about shifting those power dynamics within the industry itself. And it's not just about race either. It's about representation across the board. Gender, sexuality, disability, socioeconomic background. We need to see stories that reflect the full spectrum of human experiences.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's about creating a media landscape where everyone feels seen and heard. But it's not just about the industry, right? We as viewers also have a responsibility to be critical and discerning about the content we consume.
Absolutely. We have to be mindful of the messages we're internalizing and be willing to challenge stereotypes and biases, even when they're presented in a seemingly harmless way.
It's like we were saying earlier, it's about asking those tough questions. Who made this? Why was it made? What are they trying to tell me? And how does this connect to the bigger picture of race, class, and gender in our society?
Right. And being willing to step outside of our comfort zones
Mm.
and seek out content that challenges our perspectives and introduces us to new voices and experiences.
It's about expanding our understanding of the world and recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all narrative when it comes to Blackness or any other identity for that matter.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that this isn't just about, quote unquote, being woke or checking boxes. It's about creating a more just and equitable world for everyone.
That's such a crucial point. It's about recognizing the humanity in every story and ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to tell their story authentically.
And it's about understanding that representation isn't just about visibility. It's about power. It's about who gets to tell the stories, who gets to control the narrative, and who gets to benefit from the profits.
That's a powerful way to put it. It's about dismantling the systems that have historically excluded and marginalized certain groups and creating a media landscape that is truly inclusive and representative.
And it's an ongoing process, a journey that requires constant reflection, education, and action.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of reality TV and Black popular culture, I hope you, our listener, are leaving with a renewed sense of awareness and a commitment to be a more conscious consumer of media. Remember, your choices matter. Support the creators who are pushing for progress. Challenge the narratives that perpetuate harmful stereotypes. And use your voice to advocate for a more just and equitable world.
And never stop questioning, learning, and growing.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.